back to Let's Create with Alex Blake. I'm your host, Alex Blake, and today it is just me. I feel like I haven't had an episode that's just me in a while, so it's kind of fun to hang out, just chill with you, grab some coffee. This is actually the earliest in the day that I've ever recorded. It is 7:45 a.m. right now as I'm recording this. So if you happen to be listening with me at 7:45 a.m., go you, because I don't know how you guys do this. Recording this early in the morning is not the move, okay? It's not my usual go-to, but honestly, I have October photo camp coming up and my life has been hectic. So normally I have pretty strict work hour boundaries, and it just is what it is. My grandma's coming in town today, so I have that personally going on, which is going to be so fun, obviously, to have her here. But it means that my work hours are very different today. And then I'm also on this health kick thing, so I'm trying to be a good worker outer and stuff. So I have a workout class right after this. So I'm really getting started with my day. But all that to say, guys, it is going to be a little bit shorter of an episode for you guys today, only because I have photo camp coming up, and honestly, you girls got to get to work, okay? So I can't just chat with you all day like normal. But all that to say, it's going to be a little bit shorter of an episode, but still really good stuff. Today we are going to be talking about how to shoot in direct sun. Ooh. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about when I'm saying direct sun, I'm going to I'm talking about direct sun, but I'm also going to talk about midday shooting. So let me just define it really quick. Direct sun is when the sun is directly on your subject. And then there's backlit, which I'll talk about some. Backlit is when the sun is directly behind your subject. And then there's midday, which is really an interesting time because it's when the sun is over your subject. And depending on the time of the day, over your subject is around 12 p.m., right? Because that's when the day is its brightest. The sun is right above your subject most of the time. And then there's maybe 2 p.m. where the sun is slightly off center from right above you, right? So that's kind of what we're talking about today. A lot of you have DM'd me about that. I always ask you guys to DM me at Alex Blake Photography if you ever want to hear about any subjects. And I've gotten a lot of asks about direct sun. And I think that the reason that I get asked a lot about it is because I tend to post a lot of photos in direct sun. And honestly, as much as I love a good direct sun shot, a close-up with direct sun, chef's kiss, honestly. But also, I think a big part of it is really that I'm on the East Coast. So I'm on the East Coast, which means that when I shoot at the beach, where I shoot most often for my clients, it's on the beach, the sun is directly hitting the ocean. And if you want to get the ocean in the back of a photo, then you're gonna have direct sun. So really, it's out of tried and true practice that I have this rather than true desire to do that. But at the same time, now that I shoot that way so often, I have learned to absolutely love it. I love the tones that your skin pops with the sun on you. It just looks so beautiful. I love the glistening of the ocean and the coloring of the ocean with the direct sun. But I also love a good midday shoot at the beach, and that also scares a lot of people. So I want to just chat with you guys about it. Again, shorter episode, but something that I think a lot of you guys will really like to hear me chat about. So, and by no means am I perfect at this. Let's clarify. You guys know I am fully self-taught with photography, but these are things that have been helpful for me as I have grown and as I've learned. So let's talk about some things that are hard about shooting midday. So this is midday. This is during the day, not quite golden hour. It's not going to be full on direct sun most of the time, right? But it's going to be really bright outside. So a lot of the time, what's really hard about shooting midday is those harsh shadows and the contrast. Those really dark spots, because the sun is over your subject, is going to be really hard at shooting midday. So we'll talk about that in a second. Blown out highlights and overexposure is something that a lot of the time people are really afraid of when shooting midday. For example, I shot at the beach the other day. You guys can go and look at it on my reels. I think I put beach shoot on the reel, but it's me and my friend Piper, and we went and shot. and the sun was like glistening on the water, and it's so pretty. But I had some DMs that actually were like, how do you do this? Because I would be so afraid of the ocean being so overexposed. So we're gonna talk about that in a second. And then loss of details is a thing that I think, because people are afraid of it being overexposed and the highlights being really crazy in the photo, they're afraid that they're gonna lose details. And then the last thing I put on my little list is squinting. I think a lot of people are nervous of their subjects squinting, their clients feeling like they have the sun in their eyes all the time. And honestly, that is an issue. So we're gonna talk about some tips with posing that might help a little bit with that in a second. So that's kind of where we're going for today. Those are the things that are hard about shooting midday. If you have any to add to that list, like I said before, feel free to DM me and we can talk more about it. I might have some ideas, I might not, I might struggle with it, I might not, but we can chat through it and see if we can find like some type of solution if it is something that you deal with. Okay, random thoughts too. Something that is really, really helpful when shooting in direct sun or midday is using reflectors or diffusers just for like controlling and bouncing light. However, I'm not going to talk about that in this video because it isn't something that I usually work with. So I have worked with them. I think depending on your style, it's great to do those things. It definitely, if you're looking for like the most high quality photo, that's the way you do it. Like, let's just put that out there. But if your style isn't using a lot of those things, then you gotta kind of work it out. Part of it for me is like, it isn't quite my style because it does look different when you use like, you know, reflectors or you use diffusers, you use, you know, off-camera flash, like that kind of stuff is going to make it, again, be a really high quality photo, but the style of it looks different. And then the biggest thing for me too, honestly, is I love to really hone in on my client experience. And personally, I feel like if you have a client experience that is like lugging around gear, it's not always the best unless they're prepped for it. Like if you prep them for it, tell them, hey, we're gonna do this, this, and this. But I don't know, I feel like sometimes it's a lot. They have to wait around a lot for you to like pull out your light and stuff like that. And if it's like, again, a stylistic thing, they know that it's happening before, just always telling people before is gonna help them to have a good client experience because they're prepared for it. But if they're not prepared for it and you're just having them stand, like for me, on the beach or in a field or whatever, and just like wait while you set up your light and get that test shot and then like blah, 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 it's not always the best client experience. I also love to like move around a lot when shooting. And I feel like it's harder because you have to pack up your lights or whatever too. So I personally, like, I think it's annoying that I even bring my changing tent around. Like, I love to be like hands-free. I don't even bring my camera bag when I'm out on shoots. I have my camera, one body, right? One lens. And this again is for sessions. If I'm shooting an event, it might look different, or with a brand, you know, it might look different. But for my senior sessions, one body, one lens. I have my crossbody that has everything that I need in it, and really that's it. And again, it's different. If you have a different style than me, you might use that differently, but I'm not going to talk too much about reflectors, diffusers, off-camera flash, stuff like that. But if that is your style, you want to learn more about that, just Google it, look on YouTube. There's so many people who talk about those things, and it would be really helpful to learn. So that's a random thought. I already talked about like what direct flash, that's great too. Again, a style thing. Direct sun and backlighting is, but one thing that I will say is with that, you want to think like if you're shooting at golden hour specifically and it is like a direct sun or a backlit kind of option, making those your two only options is a really important thing to remember unless you're trying to use shadows for style. So let me explain what I'm saying. If your sun, okay, if I'm the subject and you're taking a photo of me, having the sun directly on me is going to make me well lit, right? If I flip around and have the sun directly behind me that's backlit, then it's going to be a beautiful photo because the sun is going to pop out great, and you can use a mask to kind of like in Lightroom to kind of make your subject pop. It's going to be a beautiful photo, and it's going to be even lighting on your subject both ways, okay? If you flip me and put me in the middle where the sun is to the side of me, When it's golden hour, it's really cool because you get some of that golden kind of light. However, if it isn't golden hour, all you're creating is shadows. Again, if that's a stylistic thing for you and you like to play around with that, that's perfect, amazing, do it, right? But if it isn't stylistic, you're trying to get really even lighting, don't do that. Don't have your light coming from the side or like an angle. Have your light coming face forward or fully backlit. So that way you get the most even portrait. Does that make sense? I don't know why I asked you guys as if you could respond. But cool, glad it does. If it doesn't, DM me and we'll chat about it. Again, with the even lighting, this is another random thought, but if you're shooting midday, find shade. Okay. Let me talk about really quick why I like to shoot midday. I don't shoot midday for my seniors. The reason I don't is because I like to have consistency in what I post on Instagram and what they are going to receive in their gallery. So I started doing seniors at sunset because most of the time they're in school, and if I do it at sunset, it allows me to be able to shoot during the week rather than the weekend most of the time for seniors. And they'll book me on a random Thursday night. It'll be like after school for them, and it just works for the schedule. I would prefer to work in the evenings rather than the days. In the evenings of the weekdays rather than the days of the weekends. So for me, I offer senior shoots only in the evenings. It creates consistency for my work. It's obviously beautiful lighting at golden hour. We all love a good golden hour, right? And then for them, it works for their schedules, and it makes me not be able to work on the weekends. However, I don't just work with seniors. I also work with brands. And what's amazing is I have like spring and summer pretty much reserved for my seniors. That is like busy season for me where I am. I have a lot of tourists, busy season, okay? For the seniors. But in the fall and the winter, my time kind of slows down a little bit with seniors. I have my local seniors still, but it's a lot less than in the spring and the summer. So I open my books a lot more for local brands here. And I get to work with clothing brands. I get to work with brands that do like wellness. I get to do headshots for brands. I get for like service brands. I get to do apartment complexes and stuff like that. And what's beautiful about working with brands is they don't really want to work in the evenings either. So because of that, I get to offer midday shoots. It allows me to kind of have more time in my like social life and my personal life because I get those evenings back during the winter and the fall months when I work with brands. That being said, though, brands are not going to hire someone who doesn't have midday shoots in their portfolio if they know what they're looking for. Because if they know they want a shoot at 3 p.m. outside on a random day, they're going to be looking for that in your portfolio. And if you don't have that to show and they don't know what they're looking for, they're going to hire you and be... I was about to say this really harsh. I'm going to say it anyway, but I'm going to slow down as I say it. They're going to be disappointed if what they look at in your portfolio is not what they get back because you don't know how to shoot midday. Okay, I'm so sorry that was harsh. But it's true. Like, if it's not consistent with your portfolio, they're going to be disappointed. So I love shooting midday, but I also think it's important we know how to shoot midday. So let's talk about some camera settings for midday when it's really bright and sunny outside, and then also it kind of works well with direct sun too. So let's talk about camera settings. There are 3 things you need to remember for your camera settings when shooting midday or in direct sun. First thing is lower ISO. ISO is fake light. You're adding fake light to your picture. If you have a high ISO and it's midday, super sunny outside, why are you doing that to yourself? Don't do that, right? Like, it's fake light. So keep it at 100 or less if it's super, super sunny, right? Like, you don't need fake light. So you're gonna have a low ISO. The next thing is you're gonna have a higher shutter speed. So shutter speed is how fast your shutter is clicking. So if you have a low shutter speed, it's gonna take a long time for your camera to take a photo. It's gonna go, and in that break in there, it's allowing light into your camera. It's allowing light into the photo. But if you have a high shutter speed, it's like click, click, click. It's right? You can take your photos right back to back with each other, and it's allowing less light in to your camera. So if you have a high shutter speed, that's great if it's midday or direct sun, because you don't want a lot of light. You already have natural light going on outside of your camera. So you're gonna have a low ISO, you're gonna have a high shutter speed, and you're gonna have a higher f-stop. F-stop gets you that blurry, creamy background in the back, of your photo. However, it also brings light to your photo. When you have a lower f-stop, it brings light to it. Again, we don't really want a lot of light because you already have it outside. You don't need it. So it depends on obviously like where you are, how much light you have, all of the things, right? But I don't usually mess with my f-stop only because I tend to shoot with a 24-70, like 99.9% of the time. And because of that, my f-stop is 2.8. So it's a little bit higher than if you're working with a prime lens, like a 50 or 35 that has like a 1.4 or 1.8 f-stop. But if you are working with one of those lenses, I would bump it up just a little bit so that you're not having as much light in. You can still go to like 2.8 and have like somewhat of a creamier background, right? You don't need to crank it all the way up because then everything is going to be in focus and it like lessens the quality of the photo a little bit, right? But if you're trying to like get as less light in as possible, you can higher that f-stop up just a little bit than you normally would if you were doing something more like backlit or something like that. So those are the three things to remember: lower ISO, higher shutter speed, and a higher f-stop. Again, I usually keep my f-stop at 2.8 and it's totally fine. So let's talk about some posing tips. Those are some like camera setting tips, but let's talk about posing tips. I have a couple things that I consistently do when it's really bright outside that helps my client feel a little bit more comfortable. So one thing that I always do is a 1, 2, 3, open. And it's as simple as that. I have them close their eyes, and when it's time for me to take the photo, I'm going to pose them and everything. They'll close their eyes, and then I'll say, okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, open. They're gonna open their eyes, and guys, when they open their eyes, I am an overshooter, okay? I'm not usually an overshooter. I try really hard not to because I don't want to have to go through that, although Aftershoot has helped me. If you need an AI culling and editing software, go to the link in my bio on Instagram. I'll even put it in the show notes for you because seriously, thank you Aftershoot, you're amazing. But all that to say, I click, 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 click. The reason I do that is because I want to make sure that I get a perfect photo. Sorry, I'm like choking. A perfect photo of when they open their eyes, but not the second after when they start squinting from the sun, right? Because it's gonna like blind them for a second. But because it's gonna blind them, we're not gonna do this all the time, right? So I do the 1, 2, 3 open trick and it's amazing, but I'm not gonna have them do that for every photo in their session because again, it won't be a good client experience. So we're gonna have them do that when it's direct sun. We're then gonna flip them, do a couple backlit, give their eyes a rest, then come back to the direct sun, do it again, move them on, do something different, right? So it's not every single photo that we're doing that. Another little posing tip that I like to do in direct sun is kind of a reminder for you. So the reminder is you don't always have to get the perfect portrait of their face in direct sun. You can have them do something motiony and get like the lighting of the direct sun in their gallery. So an example of this would be like running away. So if they have a dress on or something like that, like lift up their dress. If it's a couple, you can have like them hold hands and run away and they're like running off into, again, for me, it would be the ocean. It might be a field for you or downtown, whatever it is, but they're going to be running away and you get the lighting of the direct sun, but you don't have to capture their faces. And so that way they don't have to worry about squinting. So that's a big one. They could also twirl or bend down and look away, and you get like the background blurry or the subject blurry and the background in focus. Like there's lots of different little tricks with that kind of thing too. Like just a reminder, it doesn't have to be them like perfectly smiling at the camera, right? So that's a tip. Another posing tip is to put their chin up. This just eliminates those shadows. Remember we talked about like shadows are a big thing that kind of like stops people from wanting to take pictures midday or in like direct sun. But the big thing that I do with this is ask them to put their chin up and angle it to the side. It's a great look for people. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see like the difference between me squarely facing the camera and then just a little tilt of my chin and kind of putting it up and back. And it immediately will like eliminate those shadows that happen naturally from the chin onto the neck. And then it also helps for like the under eye shadows too, because you're just getting more light in their face. That is especially helpful for the midday shoots, but definitely for direct sun too, depending on your angle that you're taking the photo. Another little posing tip, I guess this isn't posing, it's more like style, but I always tell them if we're shooting in the middle of the day, no hats. That's just my golden rule. Like, hats create shadows on your face, right? If you have like a ball cap, shadow on the face, not fun. You lose a lot of details when editing. You can't really come back from that one, to be honest. So I have a no hats rule if they're portraits. However, if it is a brand, there are times where I can't avoid it because they might be selling those hats. So what I can do is like the hats, really, you just find shade for it. You're not gonna do those in the like direct sun lighting or the midday lighting, because again, you're just gonna have shadows unless it's stylistic. So my other tip is to like utilize the shadows in cool ways. And an example of this is to use like a hat. So say it's not a baseball cap where it's gonna create full shade on the face because the sun is coming from above. Say it's like a straw hat and you're doing something that's like French feeling and it's cool and you're downtown and they have a purse in their hand with flowers popping out and they're wearing a straw hat and looking down. The shadows from the sun coming right above you could be really cool to get a detail shot on their face with. So like where the sun is peeping through the straw hat and creating like diamonds on their face, that could be a really cool photo. So you can utilize the shadows in really cool ways, but you want to make your surroundings work for you. You don't want to work for your surroundings, right? So, okay, posing tips are 1, 2, 3, open. You don't always have to use their face in the photos. Chin up, no hats unless it's stylistic, and then utilizing the shadows in cool ways. So let's talk about some editing tips and then we will be good to go for this episode. Okay, editing tips. Everyone edits differently, so obviously, utilize this for your style. However, these are things that I found that are really, really good for editing when something is really bright and you need to tone down the image a little bit, really, because obviously you're shooting in midday or in direct sun. So first thing is lower your whites. Lowering your whites is great. I suggest you to lower your whites and lower your highlights. So those are two things that I pretty much always do. But what I found is lowering your whites a little bit more than your highlights helps it to feel a little bit more creamy and smooth on pretty much every skin tone. Because one thing that is like just a common truth of if you are shooting in direct sun, your skin will have a little bit more punch to it. Like if you're getting a close-up especially, you're gonna be able to see everything on their face. You're gonna be able to see all of their beautiful freckles, but you're also gonna be able to see if they have some hair on their face or if they have a pimple on their face or whatever. It's just gonna like really make those things punchy. And so we wanna soften that a little bit. We want our clients to feel beautiful and confident, and we just want to make sure that they look beautiful and look confident in the photo too. And if you wouldn't want it on your face, get it out of there. You know what I mean? So what we're gonna do is pull those whites down, make it really creamy and smooth on their skin tones, pull the highlights down just a little bit, and then the other thing we're gonna do is pull the shadows up. And again, this is stylistic, but personally for my own portraits, I like the shadows up, so it makes those shadows a little less punchy in the photos. And then the other thing too is to utilize masks. So a lot of people talk about how, I lit it for the subject well, but the background midday was like really bright. Great. Use an AI mask in Lightroom, pull down your highlights all the way, pull your whites down just a little bit, pull the exposure down, and then your background will be fine. So And again, you have to be careful about that because what you shoot in camera really matters. So go back to those camera settings, make sure you're doing the low ISO, make sure you're doing a higher shutter speed, a higher f-stop, and you'll be good to go with editing too. Another way that I utilize masks for this is I utilize it for their face. Again, there's a lot more clarity that comes on the face if you're doing a direct sun shot, especially if it's a close-up. So I utilize an AI mask and I bring down my clarity and I bring down my texture just to smooth out their skin even more. And then what I'll also do is the highlights are very real when you're doing this. And I already told you to bring your highlights down on the whole image. However, on a face, especially if somebody has a little bit more oily skin, there will be lighter, like the light will catch their skin in certain areas and create patches of light that I personally don't love in an image. And I think taking those out of my image have really like leveled up my photos. So I use masks for that, or I really used to before AI, but I'll explain that in a second. But yeah, I used to use masks a lot for it. I'll just drag my brush over it. I'll bring my temperature just a little bit higher to make that little patch of white match their skin, and then bring my clarity and my texture down quite a bit. And that will like help those little patches match. Now, I said I used that a lot before AI. Now that we have generative fill, it's super easy to just brush over those little white spots, hit boom, and hit boom. I don't know why I said that, but hit enter and then boom. It's like fixed for you. Sometimes though, AI can take a little bit to load and I don't feel like having to deal with it, and I can just do it quicker if I just brush it really quick and, you know, do my little settings on it. Or if I'm editing somewhere without Wi-Fi, you can't use AI generative fill. So if I'm like editing on a plane, I'll just do it myself with a brush. So those are some big things for using masks. Yeah, I think that's like pretty much it for my editing tips. Again, if I missed anything, if you have anything that you're like, oh, this is also really helpful for me, or Alex, I don't know why you said that because I think you're kind of wrong in that, you can tell me. That's okay. Like DM me, let's chat about it. Or if you want some ideas or tips for anything that you have coming up, I'm happy to talk with you about it. Again, DM me if you have any ideas for future episodes that you want me to chat about. And then please, 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 leave me a review. I'm just like shamelessly asking you right now. A lot of you guys have DM'd me and it's been so amazing to hear how like you've been connecting with the podcast or with my life or my community, and it's been so amazing. But I'd also love if you could leave a review on Spotify, Apple, comment on YouTube, subscribe, rate, you know, all the things, because it really does help for other people to find me too. So yeah, that is all I've got for today's episode, guys. I will see you guys next week with an interview episode, and it's going to be really fun. So thanks for hanging with me. This has been Let's Create with Alex Blake. I'm your host, Alex Blake, and I'll see you next Thursday. Bye.